My sister-in-law laughed. I used your college fund to buy my dream house. Say goodbye to being a doctor. She had no idea I already moved the $800,000. When her purchase fell through, I exposed her darkest secret. Hey, Reddit. My parents passed away when I was just 16, leaving me with a modest inheritance and a dream. One that had kept me going through all the grief and loneliness. They'd worked hard their entire lives to give me the opportunity they never had, a chance to go to medical school. The money they left behind, nearly $800,000, was carefully set aside in a college fund, managed by my uncle until I turned 18. I had always been a responsible kid, the kind who stayed up late studying, who volunteered at the local clinic, who knew that my parents' legacy wasn't just money, it was a mission. I wanted to be a doctor not for the prestige, but because I wanted to heal people the way no one could heal my parents. That fund was everything to me. Every dollar in that account wasn't just money. It was my future. When I turned 18, my uncle, true to his word, transferred full control of the fund to me. I created a trust and locked it down tighter than Fort Knox, only allowing access through dual authorization to prevent any fraud or mistake. My sister-in-law, Melissa, however, always had a certain sparkle in her eyes whenever money was brought up. She had married my older brother, Daniel, 5 years ago, and since the very beginning, I knew she was trouble. She came from money, but her family had gone bankrupt during her teenage years, and from that moment on, she seemed to believe the world owed her compensation for every discomfort she'd ever faced. Melissa was the kind of person who wore labels like armor, curated her Instagram feed like a Hollywood PR manager, and bragged about how she was born for luxury. I tolerated her because she was family, but deep down, I knew she looked down on me. She once told me when I got accepted into a pre-med program that becoming a doctor was just a poor person's fantasy of wealth and that I should marry rich instead. I didn't bite. I ignored her insults, ignored her attitude, and kept my head down, focused on my studies, on my future. But what I didn't know was that Melissa had been quietly watching me, waiting for an opportunity, and she found one. About 3 months ago, Melissa learned through Daniel that I had complete access to my college fund. I had made a small transfer to cover some tuition fees, and apparently, Daniel mentioned it in passing. That was all Melissa needed. She started prying, asking casual questions. Where did I keep the money? Who managed the account? Did I think medical school was really worth the investment when people were making 6 figures from TikTok? I didn't tell her anything, of course, but she had a knack for manipulation. Over the next few weeks, she ramped up her charm around me, pretending to be supportive, pretending to care. I wasn't fooled, but I didn't see the ambush coming either. Then came the call. It was a Sunday morning. I was sipping coffee, reviewing flashcards for my biochem exam when my phone rang. It was Melissa. Her voice was practically dancing with glee. I hope you're not too upset, she said. But I just made an offer on a house. My dream home. And guess what I used? Your college fund. I know. I know. You're probably shocked. But honestly, it's for the best. You're not really cut out for med school anyway. You should have seen this place. Marble countertops, 5 bedrooms, a walk-in closet bigger than your apartment. You'll thank me later. I froze. For a few moments, I couldn't even comprehend what she was saying. My college fund. How? I double-checked my banking app. Heart pounding, breath shallow. The account was untouched. The $800,000 was still there. That's when it hit me. Melissa had tried to steal it, but she didn't realize I'd already moved the entire amount a few days earlier into a separate trust inaccessible without biometric authorization. It had been a random decision. I'd felt uneasy after a phishing scam hit my campus. So I moved the money into a more secure vault-like account with an investment bank. Melissa must have tried to transfer the funds and failed. But instead of verifying it, she jumped the gun and gloated. I played dumb on the phone. I asked her for details. She said she had already signed the papers and paid the deposit using what she thought was my college fund. My guess. She forged documents, maybe even manipulated Daniel into giving her some access, and tried to wire the money directly to the seller. But the transfer didn't go through. And now, there was a mess. I ended the call without saying much, letting her swim in her delusion while I got to work. I dug deep and discovered everything. Melissa had not only tried to forge my signature, but she had also impersonated me via a spoofed email account she created using my name. She'd even contacted my bank posing as me, trying to authorize the transfer. She was sloppy though. All of it was traceable. I compiled the evidence quietly, meticulously. I reached out to a lawyer, shared all the data, and we began drafting a response. But that wasn't all. You see, Melissa had a secret. A big one. Years ago, before she married my brother, Melissa had been involved in a hit-and-run accident. She was never charged because the case went cold, but she had confided in someone. Her former best friend, Tara. They had a falling out years later. And I remembered Tara once hinting that Melissa wasn't the person we all thought she was. I reached out to Tara under the guise of needing to know the truth for legal reasons. Turns out, Tara still had the dashcam footage Melissa had accidentally sent her while bragging that she got away with it. I now had that footage in my possession. So not only did Melissa try to commit financial fraud against me, but she had a criminal past that could ruin her entire life. Still, I didn't act immediately. I wanted her to realize what she had done. I wanted her to feel the walls closing in. 2 days later, Melissa called again. This time, she was frantic. The house sale had fallen through. The bank froze the transaction. The seller was threatening legal action because the deposit hadn't cleared. Daniel was furious. Apparently, she had promised him that the money was a gift from my parents' estate, and now he was demanding answers. Melissa, still clinging to hope, begged me to release the money. That's when I told her. I told her I knew everything. That the $800,000 was safe. That her attempt to steal from me had failed. That I had enough evidence to bury her for fraud, identity theft, and more. She screamed at me, threatened me, even tried to guilt-trip me by dragging Daniel into it. But I stayed calm and said 7 words that shut her up completely. I know about the hit and run. The line went dead, and that's when everything began to unravel. The moment I said those 7 words, I know about the hit and run, the line went dead. I stared at my phone for a few seconds, half expecting her to call back immediately, but she didn't. I imagined the look on Melissa's face, the color draining from her cheeks, the panic setting in as she realized how much trouble she was truly in. It wasn't just the failed house deal anymore. This was bigger. She knew that the past she'd buried so carefully had just been dug up and that I held the shovel. For the next few days, silence. Melissa didn't text, didn't call. Even my brother Daniel went dark. The quiet didn't comfort me. It was the kind that came before a storm. I wasn't just waiting for retaliation. I was preparing for it. My lawyer had already started the process of pressing charges. We filed an official complaint with the bank's fraud department, submitted the email and voice recordings she'd left behind, and shared the dashcam footage with the authorities. It was all in motion now. I wasn't bluffing. But the next blow didn't come from Melissa. It came from Daniel. He showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find him standing there, looking like a ghost. Dark circles under his eyes, a manila envelope in his hands, and an expression somewhere between heartbreak and disbelief. He didn't say a word at first, just walked in, sat down at my kitchen table, and placed the envelope in front of me. Inside were copies of every fraudulent document Melissa had used. The fake authorization forms, the forged emails, even a draft of a letter she had planned to send to my college, pretending I dropped out and wanted the refund issued directly to her. Daniel had found everything. He'd gone through her computer after the house deal collapsed, and the seller threatened legal action. What he discovered shattered his trust, his marriage, and his faith in her. But the worst part, he admitted, was that he had believed her. When she first told him the money was rightfully hers, that my parents had left it as a shared family fund for all of us, he didn't question it. He never checked the will, never thought she would lie, and that guilt was eating him alive. He asked me not to destroy her, not for her sake, but for their kids. My niece and nephew were only 7 and 5. Too young to understand what was happening, too innocent to suffer because of their mother's greed. He begged me to find another way. Maybe civil charges. Maybe some kind of settlement. Anything short of prison. I told them I'd think about it. But deep down, I already knew what I was going to do. This wasn't just about money. Melissa had tried to ruin my life. She had mocked my dreams, tried to steal my future, and laughed while doing it. If the roles had been reversed, she wouldn't have hesitated to destroy me. And more than that, she needed to be stopped. Because if she got away with this, she'd just move on to her next victim, confident she could manipulate and charm her way out of anything. Still, I didn't want to ruin the kids' lives. They were innocent. So I did something unexpected. I met with Melissa face to face. She didn't look like the woman I once knew. Her perfect makeup was gone, replaced with a pale, anxious face. Her hair was tied up in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes, and her hands trembled slightly as we sat across from each other in a quiet corner of a public cafe. I wanted witnesses in case she pulled something. She tried to speak first, but I held up a hand and said I'd do the talking. I laid it out clearly. I had all the evidence. The fraudulent attempts to steal my college fund, the spoofed emails, the forged documents, and the footage of the hit and run. I told her I had already filed a report, that the DA had been made aware, but I hadn't pushed the gas pedal yet. Then I gave her a choice. Option 1, I go public. I pursue all charges to the full extent of the law. That meant jail time, a criminal record, and losing custody of her kids. Everything she had built, every facade she'd maintained would crumble. Her name would be in headlines, her face in the news, and her past exposed forever. Option 2, she signs over full custody of the kids to Daniel, files for divorce immediately, and leaves quietly with a sealed agreement never to contact me or my family again. In return, I would drop the hit and run tip unless another victim came forward on their own. I wouldn't pursue criminal fraud charges for the college fund, but she would have to repay Daniel every cent of the money she'd drained from their joint accounts chasing her dream house. And she would also write a letter of confession for my records, in case she ever stepped out of line again. She stared at me, stunned, for a full minute. Then she cried. Not loud, dramatic sobs, quiet, bitter tears that trickled down her cheeks while she nodded. She knew she was trapped. She had underestimated me. She thought I was just some shy, nerdy med student with no spine. She had no idea what I had become. Within 2 weeks, the divorce was filed. Daniel got full custody. Melissa signed everything. The house deal collapsed entirely, and she moved back to her parents' tiny apartment 2 states away, her reputation in shambles. I never saw her again. Never heard from her. It was like she disappeared. Daniel apologized every day for months. I forgave him. Eventually, he had been blinded, yes, but he wasn't malicious. He was another one of Melissa's victims, and he proved his loyalty by standing by me through everything that followed. As for me, I kept my college fund, every penny of it. I graduated from pre-med, got accepted into med school with honors, and today, I'm halfway through my residency. The dream my parents had for me, I'm living it. And every time I step into a hospital room, I remember how close I came to losing it all because of one woman's greed. But she lost more. Not because I ruined her. Because she ruined herself. And I made sure she never got the chance to do it again.